if you think of the parts you make, what's the highest repeat part you might make in a year?
In a whole year, we got some smaller parts that we make. I mean, if we sell 10, 15, 20 of them, it's a
lot, right?
That's a lot this year, yeah.
Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with Jacob Litke, president of Skillcraft Machine Tool Company. Jacob, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, dude, it's the Made in America podcast. So same two questions to start. What do you make and why do you make it?
Yeah, so we're a high mix, low volume job shop. Our specialty is support equipment for the aircraft industry. That's basically anything they need to either assemble the aircraft engine in production or disassemble it, service it, and reassemble it either on the ground or on the plane. And we do work directly for OEMs, both military and commercial. So that's really good. And the reason we do it is we like the challenge. It's not the easiest type of manufacturing, depending on who you talk to, but we like the challenge, and that allows us to work with some really awesome people. And the ability for us to provide the workplace that we do for our employees is what our team really strives for.
Dude, that's awesome. And we got a lot to talk about. We got an interesting history, some family dynamics, some detailed manufacturing. I think we're going to get into a little bit about what you mean when you say low volume, high mix. We'll kind of talk about that. So we got a lot to get in, but I'd like to really start off with sort of the personal journey.
Sure. And
just talk about, how did you get into manufacturing? Why are you so passionate about it? What do you love about it? So let's start from the beginning, man. How'd you get into it?
Sure. So Skillcraft was started in 1946. A
little bit before your time.
A little bit before my time and my dad's time. But my dad ended up purchasing the company in the early 90s. He was a toolmaker by trade, so he was just there making parts. Had gone through an apprenticeship program and, ended up, taking on a leadership role there and purchased it in the early 90s. And I think they had 7 or 9 guys.
Small shop.
Yeah, it was small.
So was the original family that had owned it up to that point?
No, there was another guy before that who had purchased it with the original founder's son.
Okay.
And I believe something happened to the son. He might have passed away or something happened. And so Sal DeFabio, who was the person that my dad purchased it from, he had full ownership and had hired my dad and had him come in and start running the shop and doing all that. And then eventually sold to my dad. He just passed away like a year or two ago. So Sal DeFabio. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, my dad's still alive. Right. And so he purchased it. And then, so growing up as a kid, I was always in there on Saturdays. I mean, Saturday afternoons or mornings was when I would go in there and, I didn't do anything. I'd make like dog tags with a belt sander and a nip, and a nipper. Yeah. Do that. I think at one point I had like some plexiglass pieces and I would carve things into them, would do that. And then I got a little older and I was sweeping all the time and, I got paid $5 whole to sweep the whole parking lot once.
Is that right?
That was
$5
awesome.
whole dollars.
Yeah, $5 whole
in one
dollars.
bill, or to give you 5 ones to really make you feel?
It was 5 ones.
Yeah, that'll make you feel better.
And I remember asking him, like, is this what everyone gets paid? He goes, yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of good memories there. And so as I got older, getting ready to go to college, I don't think me and my dad never really had the conversation, but it was never the plan for me to come into the shop and do any business. My dad had always felt that he had seen enough father-son duos kind of fail in his time that he didn't want to be in that position and jeopardize, ruining our relationship or the business or anything like that. So I went off to college, got a mechanical engineering degree, lived up in Maine for a long time, got a job out of college doing field service and alignment. So I would do alignment of like paper machines, hydro mills, basically anything that spun.
So you were even already in sort of the manufacturing space at that point.
And one of the things I really enjoyed about that job was seeing the different types of manufacturing, from paper mills to I was in the building where they make the additive to paint that makes if you look at a car from one direction or the other and it changes color. I was in that building, had to sign all kinds of non-disclosures because they put that in money too. So anyway, I was doing that. I got engaged to my wife. But that job, I was traveling 80-90% of the time. I'd be gone for a month at a time. It just, it wasn't aligning with my lifestyle the way I wanted
Not a
it
great
to.
family job.
Yeah, no. And this is 2012, 2013. So I start looking for another job. And I just can't find anything. I'm looking, I can't find anything. Looking, can't find anything. And so.
Were you living in Maine still at the
Yeah,
time?
still living in Maine. Yeah. And I think my little brother graduated high school. We took a family trip down to Washington, D.C. And, just during the trip, talking to my dad, he was like, hey, he's like, listen, the aerospace industry is going to be really big for the next few years. He goes, there's a lot of opportunity. He goes, would you want to come and help me run the business? I've got a purchasing manager, a guy named Ron Crosgo, who trained me, who was getting ready to retire, and I need someone to take his place. So I was like, talked to my fiance at the time, made the decision like, hey, sure, we'll take a stab at this. And came down. I was in purchasing for a while, became the purchasing manager, did more outsourcing of like total full components and everything like that, building up the supply chain a bit. Found somebody to take my role in that, did some other things out on the floor, got in operations, became the vice president, did that for about 2 years. And then in 2020, me and my dad finally came to an agreement for a buy and sell, and he was ready to retire. He wanted to go and travel and go on vacation and do the things that he'd been wanting to do for the last 30 years. So it just worked out really well. And, one of the big things for him, that I got out of our conversations of the buy and sell, he had been approached by one of our employees at one point before I came on board, and the employee had thanked him for providing, the work and providing the job and the pay and everything else that we provide to the employees. Because one of the things that I think, I don't want to say makes us different, but one of the things I try not to forget, my dad was a toolmaker, and, he likes to tell this story about, sweat dripping into the machine, working in a greasy, dirty environment and thinking, I'm never going to have a spot like this if I had a spot like that. So, it's really important that we remember, who the real stars of the shop are. And it is the team members that are on the floor making the product. And so this guy thanked him for all of that. And he realized that, if he goes and sells to some big company, right? No offense to big companies, or to some, investment group, right? They're going to get rid of all the things that we like to do to take care of the employees, right? The benefits are going to get cut. We have a bonus program that we run twice a year. We do profit sharing with the 401k. A lot of those things are probably going to go away. And he didn't want to see that happen with the team that he had built. I mean, when he purchased the company, there was 7 employees. We're currently at 32. When I bought it, we were 26, 27. So, it's a lot of people to be responsible for.
Well, don't forget their families, right? Their kids.
Yeah. And so, that was really important to him. And that's something that, I want to make sure that, me and my team continue to keep important. So, so that's kind of in a nutshell.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
well,
the long way
I
around.
wanted to go take a couple of steps back there.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that your dad was concerned, having seen some father-son duos that have failed. And I think to the point, we've all heard the horror stories that he doesn't just fail the business, but then the relationship soured, and you only have one father, and that relationship is important, and it's a tough one to rebuild if it's got a big chasm in it. So did you guys have some conversations specifically about that before you started? Or set some ground rules, or
no, never like that. I think he felt like it was the right time. He was already starting to step back from the business. So he had hired, probably something he should have done many years before that, is hire people to do the things around him instead of him doing them all, which once he figured it out and realized, he's like, man, what have I done?
What have I been doing all this time?
Yeah. So he had somebody running the day to day. He had a foreman. He had a purchasing manager that I was answering to. So I never answered directly to him. So that hierarchy was never really needed to be there. If there was a disciplinary thing or I needed correction, someone else could give it to me if needed. Never any conversation around that, but definitely didn't go into it thinking, hey, I'm going to buy this business at some point.
So that was not on your radar?
It was on my radar. Yeah. I was like, well, if I'm moving back down to Connecticut and I'm going to go do this job, like I hope it would involve it to that at some point, but never any promises or anything like that. Yeah. No, it was always really important that, and I still, feel this way. don't want anyone to think, there's that silver spoon kind of stigma, and I've always stayed away from that. In fact, I like to joke that when I started, they didn't think I needed a last name. My company email is the only one without a last name.
Is that right?
Yeah. They were like, no, it's
just call him Jacob.
Just keep it separate. Yeah.
So what do you remember when you guys had the conversation that you were going to buy it? Like, when did it become clear to you that you wanted to do it? And did you guys sort of, tell me how that went down.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I moved up, got more into operations, being the vice president and working more closely with him, we had a lean advisor that was, had kind of gotten that conversation started for us and suggested we take one day a week and just go out to lunch and just talk about business or whatever, but get out of the shop and have time where you guys can just go and do that. And so we started doing that, and that, it wasn't always business talk, but it was, through a lot of those conversations we started having, timelines and things like that. And, eventually we were like, all right, well, we're just going to want to do this. And so, went and found, he had lawyers and accountants. I went and found lawyers and accountants and found an accounting firm that wanted to work with us to kind of hash out a buy and sell agreement. And was
it a pretty smooth process once you guys kind of committed to it?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. The accounting firm that we worked with, they made everything pretty easy, and our accountants and lawyers all work together. So
I didn't imagine it was adversarial.
No, it was pretty good. So it was great.
Was it challenging? Maybe this is a question I should ask him, but was it challenging for him to sort of step away, and sort of really get out of it and sort of see? I mean, I realize, maybe it's not quite his baby because he didn't sort of found it, but I mean, he was there from a long time.
It's still his baby.
I was going to say, and it's almost like an adopted kid. It's still your kid, and you love it, and you raised it, and and it changed a lot. You talked about how much had changed, which he's got to get a ton of credit for, between the small sort of, not in a bad way, but just maybe like a sort of a bootstrap, small little, company to something that was sort of moving in the right direction, had some heft to it, had some credibility and a name in the marketplace. Yeah. And he's handing it off to you. And so now it's a little bit of a loss to him. I didn't know how'd that play out.
Obviously he's expressed to me that it's in good hands. So I think he's got a lot of confidence in me, which is nice, which I appreciate. I think one of the things that helped is not only had he kind of stepped back, but around that time, 2017, 2018, I don't want to say our customer base, the way that business was being done with our current customer base and everything like that, it shifted slightly. When he was coming up, when he was growing the business, he was able to kind of do everything, right? He could quote, he could buy all the product, he could get it set up for the guys on the floor to run. He could run it, they could run it, he could pull it off the machine after giving them advice on how to run it, and he'd do all of it. He'd just do all of it, right? So he was just running around.
It was just sort of like
him.
The wizard with a bunch of helpers.
Yeah. And so we had gotten to a point size-wise where that wasn't feasible anymore, and he had recognized that and hired a team that a couple of the guys are still with us. But the customer base, it used to always be that, especially in support equipment, they would say a tool's a tool's a tool. Right? If the wrench shows up and it fits on the nut and you can turn the nut, you're good, right? If the puller fits on the part and you can pull the part out, you're good. They changed that. They wanted everything to the blueprint all the time, 100%. You weren't allowed to make any kind of judgments or toolmaker's discretion is what they used to call it, where it was like, oh yeah, but that doesn't really matter. Like, does the 090 chamfer need to be 090 or can it be 120 or can it be 060, right?
Right.
They got rid of all that and said, no, we want it to the print. And the problem is that the OEM prints that we were working to had never been updated, even the new ones, right? Because toolmaker's discretion, they would call the engineer would say, oh yeah, that's fine, hang up the phone and not make any changes. And so there was this crazy, tumultuous time where we didn't really know what was going to happen. And so
in terms of what, parts were getting rejected?
Oh yeah.
Oh, they were getting sent back.
Yeah, we actually had an issue where they took about over 300 tools that we'd built and sent to them, and they had them warehoused at their warehouse facility, and they started taking them down from the warehouse and showing them to the government, and the government was rejecting them all. And so they're sending all these things back to us and saying, hey, this is no good.
How many tools? Just to give me a sense, 300 is that? I don't know how many you make in a month and a year.
It's a lot to go look
sounds
at.
It sounds like a lot of tools. Yeah.
I mean, for us, for a year, I mean, that's 6 months maybe.
That's
maybe
a lot
less
of
than that. Maybe 3-4 months.
But my point is, like,
it was
for
a
people
lot.
that don't understand, some people think, oh, manufacturing, everyone makes 10,000 of everything. That's not the case, and we'll talk about the high mix, low volume. But that's 4 or 5 months worth of this business's entire work being shipped back.
Yep. And we had I had just hired a new quality manager. He's still with us.
This poor guy.
So he walks in, and his overarching goal when we hired him was, hey, we want to be ISO certified.
Right.
And he's like, he came in, that's what he did. He was all excited about it. And then I think he actually went on vacation, and all these rejections start showing up. And we didn't have a lot of space at the time, and his office was like in an aisleway, and we just took all the boxes and stacked them up around his desk and had like a wall around it. He comes back from vacation and says, what all this? It's like, I don't know, they came all back. And so it wasn't.
No vacation goes unpunished.
That's
Everyone
true.
knows that.
That's
Everyone
true.
knows
yeah.
that.
So because we were shifting our management at that time, I think it made it easy for him to be like, listen, the way things are going, the way the customers are, you don't have the same relationships anymore. We don't have any of the same buyers we used to have. They've all swapped out now. So I think from that standpoint, it was easy for him to walk away. And it was better for the business because the whole management team kind of shuffled out at that time. And so we were able to come in as a united front and look at this problem and go, okay, well, taking back all this work sucks, and doing all this work sucks. Like it was a lot of work, but we were able to forge a lot of really good relationships with the engineers and work with them in order to correct the prints so that we could sell the product. We were able to work with their some of the other departments in order to create some documentation that helped kind of the manufacturers push product through a little bit easier and answered a lot of the common questions. And then we were able to work with all the management that was over there and get them on board with what we were doing and how we were doing it and kind of setting the standard. And so kind of taking that challenge and trying to get it to work for you. And I think it did because, I'd like to think we're some of their, our customers come to us for that reason. Like, hey, Skillcraft knows what they're doing. They know this product. So I think it's worked out in the long run.
Yeah, man, I was thinking about that. We were telling, so many people see challenges and all they see is the problems. But if you look at it, it's the whole lemonade out of lemons type of thing, where every perspective, you had this, they were getting changed over on their teams too. So you would have went from a position of having all these relationships you don't have. And now when those relationships change over, that's an opportunity for competition to come in and win it. So you guys taking the bull by the horns, they're getting in there, forges those brand new relationships. And now you got those relationships for 10, 20 years of those careers. So it kind of sounds like it worked out.
Yeah.
And I see what you mean. Like the businesses, I think, especially as I've gone later in my career, you sort of see how everyone pines for the good old days because everyone's day before is different. And it is good sometimes to just change and have some new blood come in who isn't tied to the old way and is down with the new way. Yeah.
It's still hard to shake sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I think, even the idea of being able to just, get it done yourself. Like there's no way I could get everything done myself. I don't think I couldn't do it. And I've tried. You put in 70, 80 hours, you're like, I'm gonna do it all. You just can't. No, you can't do it. And it's not good for you. So you gotta change that. So
let's talk a little bit about the high mix, low volume. So just for there's a lot of manufacturers that listen, but there's some people that are sort of new to the trade or maybe do it a different way.
Yep.
Maybe you could explain high mix, low volume.
Yeah. So typically when you say high mix, low volume, people think, all right, you're making under 100 pieces and you're doing it on a kind of a regular cadence, right? Oh, they want 300 pieces this year, so they'll order 100 pieces here. No. So the way support equipment works is
maybe we should start with what support equipment is.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's start with support equipment. So support equipment is anything that they need when they're either designing or building the engine. They go, okay, well, we got to do this process. Like, we're going to need a puller. We're going to need a special wrench. We're going to need an alignment fixture. We're going to need all these different things. And so they design those things. The OEMs do, the engine manufacturers, and then they're like, all right, we need to buy them. But they don't buy them. Like, it's not like every engine comes with this part. It's like, all right, well, like on the commercial side, it's like, all right, well, we're standing up an MRO. And they're like, okay, so we need this list of tools. And so you get a list of tools and there's one of each. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. And I'll make, an MRO order could be 200 tools. All right, one of each. All right, cool. And then,
200 items, one of each item.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and these items range everything from what we started out making was bent wrenches. So you take a Craftsman or a Snap-on wrench and you bend it at a different angle than what it is, and that's it, you're done. Or you weld a socket onto the end of it, and now it can reach down somewhere else. Anything from bent wrenches to some of the assemblies we make are 40, 50, 60 details, assembly fixtures for like the honeycombs on the F-135, pullers, lifters for different segments of the engine. And so, the range of product that you get to see on a daily basis if you're in our shop is phenomenal. I mean, you're not doing the same thing twice.
You're not
ever.
making 10,000 widgets.
No,
everything's a little
no.
bit different. Yeah, and I don't know if people that don't work in the space really even understand how big. Everyone thinks about that we build engines and helicopters and stuff like that, but there's a huge market, maybe even bigger, of the maintenance and repair organizations, MRO, that are here to like service those engines because they're in use for decades and they've got to get through a regular set of maintenance. So every time there's a certain number of flight hours, they've got to get a certain maintenance routine done. That's how to make sure we don't have planes just falling out of the sky unexpectedly. So huge opportunity, but then they need specific tools to open the engines, lift it out, fix whatever's in there. They don't just go to Home Depot and buy a box of Craftsman tools or whatever. You got to have something special, and that's what you guys make.
Yeah. It's I think I heard somebody say it once. They're like, well, why does a hammer why does a hammer at NASA cost like $5,000? It's like, well, because that hammer is not a hammer you bought at the hardware store, right?
Right.
And you had to make one of them.
That's right.
So that's what it takes.
That's what it takes.
It's a competitive space, and you've got to be able to process that work efficiently. And we do really well because a lot of companies don't want to do that work. I mean, the supply chain is very small.
Is it? So I mean, I think that's kind of the interesting piece, right? So when people think about how to be successful in manufacturing, we talk a lot about sort of lean or Kaizen and, waste elimination and how do you, automate repetitive tasks or all this stuff. Well, like seems a lot easier to do when going back to your days of printing, right? If I'm printing out millions of one thing, then you can sort of figure out, well, hey, if I can just make some little tweaks here and shave off 5% of the time, well, 5% of something that you're going to do a million times, that's really meaningful.
Yeah.
But when you're making one part, like if you think of the parts you make, what's the highest repeat part you might make in a year?
In a whole year, we got some smaller parts that we make. I mean, if we sell 10, 15, 20 of them, it's a lot, right? That's a lot this year, yeah.
Exactly, right. And we were talking before the show, you were like, one of the things you guys make all the time, you make 2 of them typically.
Yeah.
And so, how do you guys think about waste elimination and driving efficiencies when everything is so almost bespoke?
Yeah. So what we've really tried to do, in your typical production shop, right, you're looking at the process of actually machining that part. And you're like, okay, how can we machine it faster? How can we shave 5 seconds off? Can you end mill? We can do this, that, next thing. We can't do that.
Right.
You save me 5 seconds. That guy's come when I was in purchasing. I'll come all the time. Oh, I can get you these new end mills. They'll last 10 times longer. I don't care. Like
10 times longer.
Yeah, the cut to
100 years old.
No, yeah. So what we've tried to do, we put a lot of the pressure to make this product on our Toolmakers. So our team on the floor, if they're making, say they're making something that looks like this cup and this diameter in the center is really tight, they've only got one shot.
Right.
There's no setup piece. There's no oops piece. That's it. You got one shot. So they're doing the programming. They're doing the setup. They're doing everything at the machine. So what we've tried to do is build our company up around them in order to make their job as easy as possible. I don't want that person worrying about anything other than machining that diameter to what it's supposed to be. I don't want them worrying about where they're going to find their next tool. I don't want them worrying about if something's happening around them. I don't want them worrying about, do they need to deburr something while they're sitting? No, they need to worry about that only. And so lean for us is really about reducing the amount of, looking around and finding things for those team members. And so we're really good about organizing all of our tooling. We're really good about organizing our workstations. We try to be really good with our programs and how we save them. I mean, it used to be that we didn't even save programs.
Oh my God.
You just like, all right, well, we got to make this again. So Steve did it last time. Just give it to Steve. That's fine. He's got the programs. He remembers how to do it. He did it last year. It'd be fine. Yeah, no problem.
Meanwhile,
Steve gets it.
How many different things? Like, I don't.
He's like, yeah, I did something with this. There was something weird about the handle. I got to get into it. I got to look, and you'd lose that. And now, I mean, our guys have gotten so good with pictures and saving their programs, and we've had different iterations where they start using. There's like a first page in their program where they can put notes about their fixtures. Even just saving our fixtures was huge for us. Like just these little things that you never think of, and you're like, wait a minute, we have a fixture for this. All right, let me find it. And they're like rummaging through people's desks and, and
what drawer is
like,
it in? Yeah.
What drawer? I think it's in the 20 over there. And you go over there and I don't see it. And so, that organization and making it even easier. And we like to,
that's where ISO probably came
yeah,
in.
yeah. ISO and lean and just trying to make it as easy as possible for them, because what they're already doing is hard enough. They don't need to be worried about, I can't find the right end mill. I can't find the fixture. They don't need any of that extra stress. It's stressful enough.
Yeah. So if you're doing a 100-yard dash, if you can start them on the 50th yard,
absolutely,
they're going to be able to get that done faster and probably more accurate, right? Because your enemy is a little bit of speed and also errors, right? You like you said, you got one shot.
Yeah, you don't want to turn it back.
we got to measure 6 times, cut once, because we don't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
That's wild. So it's totally different. And I mean, did you have to sort of learn that world when you came down here? Because I don't think you had that experience before.
Yeah, that's hard experience to get. We struggle to find people that have that experience already, unless we're stealing them from like a direct competitor, or if they've worked within the supply chain. So what we really look for are people that can program and set up, which is 2 different skills, and then people that are interested in this type of work. You have to really want to do it. You have to like it in order to be really good at it. And it is a different individual, because they're not the ones that want to, I've walked through some of the bigger shops where their, cycle times are an hour and they're running, 50 million pieces of these things. And the guy's sitting there with a newspaper, at the machine. And that's not what happens at Skillcraft. No. They're there. They're at the control, the machine, they're programming it. They're figuring out how they're going to make this. And that challenge of looking at a print and a block of material, and, all right, how am I going to make this? And how am I going to make it to that print? Those are the people that we're looking for. If you like that challenge, if you like that puzzle, I have a lot of fun every day.
Makes sense why you call the company Skillcraft now.
I didn't come up with the name,
but that's a great skill and craftsmanship. So I mean, for people out there that are listening that don't know a lot about what it takes to be that kind of person, like, talk about how you find these people. And I mean, people hear programming, some people probably get really freaked out. Like, I don't know how to use a computer. I'm not trying to write an application. Yep. Like, I don't know, maybe sort of talk through that for someone who doesn't know. How do you discuss what it's like and what kind of people are you looking for?
Yeah. So like I said, I mean, you got to have that passion for manufacturing. You've probably been in manufacturing for 5+ years. You've done your own programming. You've done your own setups. We've tried to go one way or the other. Oh, this guy knows setups. Maybe we could teach him programming. Or this person knows programming. Maybe we teach him setups. And it's not always a good transition. So you kind of need both. But I think some of our best successes have been people that this is just what they want to do. It's hard to put, and I've struggled with it. We even struggled coming up with a name for the position, because you can't call it a toolmaker anymore when you post online, because the toolmaker, everybody thinks of the old guy in the corner on a Bridgeport, and he's just slapping out some fixture that somebody needed, and it's just belt sanded in some places, but all the holes and the everything, it's functional, but it looks like how it looks. And the things that we need to produce, I mean, they look like jewelry most of the time. And so we started calling it a CNC programmer / operator, because you program, you set up, and you operate, and that you make the whole part. And so just having that attention to detail, having that ability to program and set up, I mean, if you've got those things, we'll probably give you a shot.
Have you done anything with apprenticeships?
Yeah. We've been running an apprenticeship now since 2016, maybe, I think, something like that.
How does that work?
Thereabouts. It's been good. It's been really good. So we've got one individual that we've graduated from the apprenticeship. A really, really great story, Glenn. He came to us as a driver.
No manufacturing, no setup, no programming, no nothing.
I think
blank sheet of paper.
Yeah, I think he'd done some woodworking, if I remember correctly. He had done cabinetry or something like that.
I don't imagine you're shipping too many wood parts though for what you guys do.
No. But came in as a driver, did well at that. we moved him up to shipping. That was kind of our standard, hey, be a driver, then move into shipping. And when he was in shipping, he was looking at all the parts and he wanted to know how they were made. And so we had an inspector who was an old tool maker. And I pulled him out of retirement to come do more inspecting because inspectors are hard to find. But he took a liking to Glenn, and those two got along really well. And they're like, hey, when you're not busy over there and he's not busy over in inspection, they go, there's an email, like just show him some stuff. And he got into it a little bit and he liked it and he took to it. And so we started an apprenticeship program and he was the first person we put in there. And it was great. We got to put him in every part of the shop. He did his 4 years, and he's probably one of the most well-rounded individuals that we have, because we've kind of departmentalized into turning and milling and things like that. But he's one of the few that we bounce back and forth all the time. And so, he's probably one of the most well-rounded guys in the shop.
Is that part? So the apprenticeship program, how many hours do you need to graduate?
I think it's like 4,000.
So
yeah.
Not a few.
And even then, I mean, you get out of that, and the graduates and the guys that are in the program will tell you, they're like, yeah, you still don't know everything.
You're still not there yet.
No, I mean,
so is part of the program intentionally moving people around to the different departments to see what they like more, to give them more exposure? What's the
give them the
process?
Exposure? Yeah, our goal is for them, and I told the people that we have in the program, I was like, listen, for me, you coming out of a Skillcraft apprenticeship program, like if you tell people you went through our program, I want you to be able to go into that shop, even if you don't stay working for us, right? Go into that other shop, and I want that to mean something, that you came from us, that you know what you're doing, and if they leave, they leave. There's nothing you can do about that. But I didn't want to. Me and the manufacturing manager, we didn't want people that just did what we do, right? Mm-hmm. We wanted them to have that full ability, and so that was important to us, and so that's what we do.
It seems like
spend a whole year on the mill, spend a whole year on the lathe, spend a whole year moving into CNC mills and the wire EDM, and then just grinding and assembling, and everything that we can get them exposed to, we do.
So I can hear it in the passion about that and how you train people. You mentioned it earlier when you talked about sort of your dad thinking about wanting to maintain the relationship between the business and the employees, and understanding that. You even talked about it, about the what do you make and why do you make it, how important a workplace is. So I just, in today's day and age in particular, when the war for talent is so brutal, that's got to be a real feather in your cap.
Yeah.
So how do you think about continuing to press that advantage and put yourself in a position to retain the great talent that you have, and hopefully through word of mouth and otherwise attract other people? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I just, for me, one of the things that we preach is we want to be, we want to grow, right? We've got room to grow. We want to keep growing. We've grown significantly in the last few years. But I don't ever want to lose, my manufacturing manager likes to say, we want to have the advantages of being corporate, but the advantages of being a mom and pop, right? So it's a lot of it's just treating people like they're human. One of the people come to you and like, oh, I got this problem, like I got to go do this or that. Like, I'm not going to write you up or ding you or whatever. Oh, you got COVID. All right, we cover you for COVID. Like, you can't come in. That's not your fault, right? So we paid the people, to stay home, or, somebody's, so and so dies and you cover them for it, or they need this or need that. We try to. We like to tell everybody, listen, this is a place for adults, right? Your job is to come in here and work. Our job is to make that easy for you and to hold you accountable. And we're just going to have conversations about if what's not working and what is working, and give you the opportunity to fix it. And so, I think that works really well, because the industry that we're in has not been that way for a long time. And I've gotten plenty of employees that come to me and they're like, hey, I really appreciate, how you guys operate and how this whole place works and the way that everything happens. Like, it's not something I've seen before. And I'm like, all right, so we're doing something right. How do we keep doing it? I just, identifying those things. But a lot of it, I think that's what a lot of it is. So,
do you find that that's been, because you talked about sort of the juxtaposition, right? The benefits of being corporate, which I took that to mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, I took that to mean sort of a belief in process improvement, sort of the ISO thing, right? It's we've got to have reliable, repeatable processes. You mentioned the whole thing about sort of surrounding I shouldn't call them tool makers, the CNC operators.
They're tool. It means something in our shop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the tool makers in your shop, surrounding them with with sort of support, process, and organization that allows them to focus
Yeah.
on their core job. So you need to have that be repeatable, right? Because if one guy saves his programs here and the other guy doesn't save them, it's not going to work. So you need some rigor there. But at the same time, you're trying to also be flexible. That's what I sort of took that to mean.
Yeah.
So how do you, it feels like those two things pull at each other. Is
Yes.
that, do they? And
Yeah.
how do you sort of balance that out?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to be flexible with it, I guess. I mean, I guess the benefit for us is, maybe in a high production environment, you've got production schedules and you can't miss. And so if that guy's not there, that machine's not running, you got a problem, right? For us, it's like, well, yeah, we're down 8 hours today because of this. And so, scheduling wise, we've got a gap, but we can probably make it up here or there the next thing. And we'll just be flexible around it and cycle the right people into those places in order to be effective. But they certainly pull at each other. But I think, one of the things that we want to leverage is our size and our ability to kind of absorb. I don't want to say cost, but there's been other scenarios where I've talked to some new employees and they're like, oh yeah, like I used to have to buy my own tools, or
Really?
oh yeah, that was very common. guys would ask me all the time, like, oh, can I bring all my tools? I'm like, you don't need to bring anything. Like, what do you mean? Like, you can bring like a little box. Like, I don't want you to bring a whole like roll away, but that's pretty common in tool making for a long time. You had all your own inspection equipment, you had all your own tools. No, don't bring any of that into my shop. That's not how we operate. No, you have everything you need here. Don't worry about it.
If you need it, we'll get it for you.
Or even just, hey, I really need an end mill to do this feature. And they're like, well, you're not getting one because there's no money on that job. So you're not getting it. I'm like, oh, okay. So what do I do? And they're like, oh, you figure it out. Yeah. And so, but that just goes back to giving them all the things that they need to be successful, right? And because I mean, the way that it used to run would be you'd hand a job to a toolmaker and you say, hey, make this whole thing. And they would do the process planning. They would buy all the material. They'd write up the heat treat. They'd cut everything. They'd write up the black oxide. They'd deburr it. They'd assemble it. And then it'd go out the door. And we looked at that and we're like, okay, so you've got a person that you're paying top dollar for, right? Because they can do all these things, and you're having them doing deburring. You're having them do like writing up heat treat. Like, why wouldn't we amass all of our heat treat and have one person that just sends out heat treat, right?
Right.
So those are the directions that we started going, and getting them to the core things that we need them doing, which is making chips.
Take everything off their plate and then really managing it that.
Yeah.
So what's the future looking like?
Wow. Trying to grow. I mean, we're at a point now, I think I mentioned we're at like 32, 33, 34 employees, something like that, where, our management team's working on trying to get out of the day-to-day operations, right? That's what we work on, is how do we pull ourselves out to work on the business more often? I mean, even something I struggle with. That's kind of the big thing for us, because freeing us up for that gives us the ability to kind of plan where we're going to go next and not firefighting all the time.
You see a lot of demand in what you guys are doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as we, through COVID and everything, you saw what happened with supply chains. There's been a lot of talk of bringing manufacturing back. I've actually had the opportunity to talk to some people that are part of that, bringing manufacturing back. And because of our ability to do low volume work, I think there's always going to be a need for that. Regardless of what we're making, whether it's, support equipment for the aircraft industry, or, that support equipment actually falls into a whole realm of different things that they use it for. So yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity out there, but just a matter of how we find our niche and find our way through it.
Find a way to get through it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, Jacob, it's been awesome chatting, and we're rooting for you.
I appreciate it.
It's a great story, man. You guys gotta keep it up. I'm gonna move us over to rapid fire round of questions, man. You ready?
Sure.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Red Sox or Yankees?
My family would kill me if I didn't say Red Sox.
There we go.
Not a baseball fan.
That's right, but I like your family already. Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Oh, Starbucks.
Staycation or exotic destination?
Yeah, exotic destination. Been cooped up too long.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone all day.
Sports car or SUV?
SUV.
Do you have a favorite business book?
Yeah, Traction.
Traction?
I'd have to put Traction up there, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
If you had to do something, Jacob, other than be president of Skillcraft, and it could be anything in the whole world, what would you do with your time?
Wow. Yeah, something outside, I assume. Yeah, I like being outside. Maybe go back to being a whitewater rafting guide.
At one point, were
Oh,
a
yeah.
whitewater
Yeah,
rafting
when I was
guide?
in college,
By the way,
yeah.
I think there's been 2 people over the 3 years we've been doing this who said be like a whitewater rafting guide is their dream.
I like to tell people, best job I ever had, worst pay I've ever had. Whole weekend, here's $60.
Is that right?
Great. Yeah, that's all you get. But
But you're
fun.
enjoying your time doing
yeah.
it. What's something that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think's helped propel you to all the success you've had?
Yeah. So one of the things that, my dad taught me, he would tell this story about the Pratt guys coming in, because Pratt's one of our big customers, and they're like, well, what's your secret for getting everything done and doing this, that, and the next thing? He'd always tell them hard work. And that's really what it is. You just got to put in the time, put in the effort, care about the things that you want to move forward and push them forward in a systematic fashion. So try to do that as best you can without, falling down.
No substitute for hard work.
Yeah, I know.
What's something that you learned later in your career or later in your life that if you could go back and tell young Jacob and he'd listen to you, you think could have a real positive impact?
First of all, he wouldn't listen. Probably. It's okay that you don't do everything yourself. It's okay to delegate. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to bring people in on things, and that doesn't all need to rest on your shoulders. So delegation and that type of management style is something that I've learned slowly over the last couple of years, but it does a lot to move things forward.
Help is not a nasty 4-letter word.
No, it's not.
Super critical. Listen, Jake, it was really awesome having you on. So much fun talking to you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by CompassMSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.